So there's a blame game going on. Every math education meeting I go to, it's always standardized tests show, for example, students know zilch about fractions. Students know zilch about decimals. They will say 0.001, no, 0.009 is bigger than 0.1. Oh, how terrible, our children just good for nothing. The blame game has to stop. That's not the children's fault. If they don't know something, the first finger should point is ourselves. We have been taught it. To go by the evidence, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, do you think, given the facts that I presented, you think you should blame the students for not learning something? Because what we teach them doesn't make any sense. That's why we're here. We want to teach mathematics. In a way, I don't make any claims about, I'm going to make you great teachers. Nobody can do that. There will be claims like this, particularly from certain schools of education. I tend not to believe anything like that. What we can do is to make sure that you don't make mistakes. The rest is up to you. I want to set up people, good education should be to set people up so that they can all perform at a minimal level. Some of them, by natural evolution or whatever you call it, they would accept. But our job is to make sure no sin is committed, that excellence must emerge as a matter of evolution. That's all I can claim. So we must at least do no harm. And that has not been done. That has not been done at all. You have just seen. As I said, you want me to go on? I'm going for 3 weeks on mistakes. Oh yeah, in case you're curious, go to the National Mathematics Advisory Panel. That's what it's called. Yeah. You Google National Mathematics Advisory Panel. They issued a report in 2008. There's an appendix in chapter 3 of the full report, which gives what we call error count of 2 very popular textbooks, one in Algebra 1, one in Algebra 2. And I don't want to go into the gory details, but the signal message that comes out of that report is that those 2 books used widely. Serious error in the sense of misusing basic definitions, having a theorem instead of supplying a proof. They give you 2 examples and pretend that that's another proof. Serious things of that nature. There would be 1 every 10 pages. Look it up. Now think about normal textbooks, what, 700 pages? So you have on average 70 major errors of that nature when a student goes through the whole year. Let me ask you, what if you have 18 weeks? No, 180 days, that would be how many weeks?
40.
Huh? 40. So that's all, so 700 pages, you have 70 mistakes. That would mean what? Almost 1 every 2 weeks, right? 1 serious error. You think that's good for learning? Every 2 weeks? You start like people serving in Afghanistan. There's a IED, what do we call it? Something is going to be wrong. So you're walking on thin ice and waiting to be drowned, right? No, isn't it? Did I get it wrong? 70 mistakes.
36 weeks.
Oh, 2 per week. Oh, God. Yeah, 2 per week. Almost 2 per week. Now you won't survive that. Nobody can survive that. And of course, that's only for Algebra 1 and Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. Take my word for it. For elementary texts, I would say it's double. 1 every 5 pages. 1 serious error every 5 pages. But you really challenge me, I bet you, let's say 2 to 1, I can find 1 major error every 3 pages. That's not the way you want to teach, obviously. So, garbage in, garbage out. You put in garbage, students, garbage. Right? So that's what it is. Not the, of course, students, some of them will take some responsibility for not learning even the few things that are correct, but that's beside the point. The point is that when you make so many mistakes, you don't even start to think about it, Right? Just say we completely botch our job. And so we are at a very critical juncture of the nation's mathematics education. The reason I bring it up, I want you to understand what you're doing, is because at this point we have the Common Core standards. The Common Core, I'm anticipating in a few slides. What I call this is the TSM, Textbook School Mathematics. This is the mathematics that has pervaded every school classroom in the whole nation for 40, 50 years maybe, at least. I haven't gone that far back. And now I come back to what I mentioned. Why is this serious? Why is it that when you were students, you were taught so badly? It's not even a matter of probable chance. You have no chance of getting anything better for exactly the reason I point out. Namely, you are taught certain things. So we say it's not good, right? What's the only hope of improvement? Well, only hope of improvement is the students who go to this crummy program, who are going to be teachers, go to college, and college elevates their level of learning. They know better. So when they go back, what do? They teach better, a generation later, because the general level of teaching improves, because they know better, then you hope that the textbooks improve, student learning improve, everything. Right? But we don't do that because in universities and colleges, we don't teach our teachers essential mathematical knowledge. And that is the hole we're in. And so, why it's so critical at this point is that the Common Core standard, for the first time, is making a very serious attempt at game-changing policy, so to speak. They want to make a change. It's not perfect, not by long shot. But this is the first set of standards that directly addresses this issue of TSM. Knowing how many things are wrong, it has made an explicit attempt to say, do it differently. So one of the things, if you begin to look at Common Core standards, you go to the web and you begin to read commentaries. And most of them miss the point, but they'll say first, most complaints are concerned with the fact that, so to speak, the Common Core standards cannot work because it's overly prescriptive. It's too long. I don't know if anyone has heard this line of thinking? It's too prescriptive. It's, it discourages creativity because it explicitly asks that certain things be taught in a certain way. I'm trying to explain to you why the Common Core standards are written that way. Because you just pretend that it's a free-for-all. I just say a few words and you immediately respond with the correct answer. That situation is not going to happen because given TSM being permanent resident in all the schools, there's no chance to say, teach addition of fractions, and then somehow the LCD is going to go away by itself. That does not happen. So the Common Core in the addition of fractions, over 3 grades, prescribes exactly what the teachers do. People who don't know mathematics believe this is a travesty. They want to hear about it. Too prescriptive. What about creativity? Now, creativity is a wonderful thing. But first, let's be correct first. Let's be correct. Then we can be creative. To be creative when you're wrong is very bad news. E.g. Hitler, Stalin. We have to be correct. So that's what we have. Oh, this time, that's good. Yeah. So, this is something a teacher from the state of Washington wrote me after he read something I wrote, and he said, "Don't make any sense." I'm quoting word for word. Now, you can't blame him. We have taught him in such a way that he believes the raw mathematics is correct. Not his fault. This is the only way slope is ever taught in schools. Why do you blame him? But when you try to make a change, there are all kinds of misunderstandings, and people begin to fantasize about, right way to do things. But mathematics, very little can be left to fantasy. It is a very unforgiving discipline. It is or it is not, and there's nothing in between. A lot of it ultimately depends on true knowledge and not on any fancy education theory. So we have to teach our teachers better. So given the few examples I'm about to give you.
Can I make a small comment right
Yes.
there? So that even if you have the few teachers that went and had extra training or whatever because they knew they wanted that to get a more broad understanding, I would argue then that when they went back into their classroom to lay out a more coherent lesson, that then their hands were slapped and they were told, you need to follow this book. This textbook right here, this is the perfect wisdom. And you would argue with your administrator and you would say, no, see, because mathematically I'm developing, right? And you would talk about this big picture. No, see, because this textbook, they must be right. Even though we know they're writing to please so many different purchasers, I guess.
So I hope that
I just don't want all teachers like.
Absolutely. No, what Melinda just said, I hope you all, it resonates with you all, I hope. Yes. And this is exactly why, at this point, I'm giving you this little presentation. This has been a problem with my institute. Our teachers, it's minimal correct mathematics. There's nothing, I don't tell you there's anything great about it. It's just minimally correct mathematics. Minimally correct mathematics, that is usable in the classroom. I don't ever teach you anything that you cannot do in the classroom. And the teachers always have had a hard time trying to carry it out. And so in a Saturday session, you're going to anticipate, if you survive this, and you have 5 Saturday sessions. And that's what I try to encourage people to say about, talk about how you have tried to implement what you have learned in your classroom. In the past, is exactly the problem that Melinda brought up. Your wrist was slapped, your head was slapped, or maybe something else was slapped, and this, you have counselors coming in and say, teacher, my parents complain this and that. So I try my best to teach teachers, but I'm always, my reputation the contrary. I never really push teachers and say, now you must implement it, because I know how hard it is, because I don't live your life and you have to face parents and principals and vice principals and so on, right? So what really made me decide to make this presentation is that in this department, contrary to what happens elsewhere, the Berkeley Math Department has a 3-semester sequence on the high school mathematics high school teachers should know. It's 151, 152, 153, and it teaches what I just said: minimally correct mathematics in the classroom. So I taught it a few times, and then one of the students I thought was, two students who were very good, and I hope something about these are the seeds I plant, and they'll change the world, right? Right? So I just took for granted. They understood why they had to take those 3 semesters, and we have a unit on campus called CalTeach. Some of you may have heard of it. And at some point last year, CalTeach decided to do a survey of teachers who went through those 3 sequences, the sequence of 3 semesters. And I was made aware of the survey. The survey included one of the 2 good teachers that I had such high hopes on. And that teacher, who was really one of the 2 or 3 best students in the whole class, all 3 semesters. So she was interviewed about what she got out of the sequence. So she said, "Yeah, that's great. Who taught us enough so that we know what's right, what's wrong. But the textbooks don't do that, so it's of no use to us because we just teach by textbooks." That was it was a little shattering. Let's put it that way. All right. So the idea becomes, well, you go to some like this institute, 3 weeks. You're going to, some of you at least will work very hard, and after that, so if you get the idea that it's wonderful, now I learn a little mathematics, and then I go back, I teach something else. Now that would be completely wrong. Now I cannot take that chance anymore. So I've decided that you're not going to do that. And this is why when he told you this morning, earlier, that every day someone is going to go up to make believe that you're teaching this in your classroom, and how will it go? I want you to understand, I'm not trying to teach you mathematics. I'm trying to make sure you teach better. There's a difference. It's not saying, I feel good, I learned this, great. I can go back and forget the rest. But when I go back to school, I forget everything I learned, I teach according to textbooks. That is not what we hope to do. So I hope that you know, you are here because I want you to teach better. To teach better, then, you will have to teach more or less according to what? How we say things here. So in the past, exactly, your wrist would be slapped. But not for much longer, because 2014, what happens? No, what I mean is that it is 2012 here, right? Yeah. So you have only 2 more years, but most states are gradually sort of transitioning to Common Core. So when you go back to teach the way you're taught here, you have a perfect argument because that's what the Common Core dictates you should do. You will still, no, they will still try to slap your wrist. There's no question about it. They will still do that. But at least there's hope that with this awareness that Common Core is upon us, you don't have to say, well, because I know better, because mathematics is this or that. You just say, there, Common Core page 25, standard 3.2. There it is. You're not making things up. You're just doing what has to be done. If not now, 2 years later, well, or maybe a year and a half later, or maybe better yet, 1 year later, it's happening. You have a perfect reason for doing it.
So can I ask you a question? So you had mentioned about textbooks being a major part of the problem. So how is the Common Core standards going to resolve this? Are they going to?
It will not resolve anything about textbooks. You should know the reality. It will do nothing about textbooks. Why not? One,
Money.
Textbooks were not written to improve education. Textbooks are written to be sold in large quantities. So textbooks have to be written in such a way that most teachers feel comfortable with them. given the state of teachers' knowledge right now, what do you think is most comfortable? Oh, what I told you about in Gun High School in Palo Alto. That's a very good high school. And I put on, asked them this thing about slope. All of them. I didn't finish that story. I gave them the same one, the same picture, and said, this is the slope. Is there anything wrong? Is that all there is to it? So to a man or to a woman, they all said, no, this is great. This is what we know, and this is perfectly simple. So I told them, just do this. You know what they said? You're making things so complicated. So what it means is that teachers like the wrong way of doing things right now until they are taught properly and say, well, this is bad for learning, this is whatever, you have to explain that. But until that point comes, teachers would gravitate toward things that are the way they were. In other words, it used to be. All the wrong things. So I was once consulting, I was consulted by a major publisher. They said they want to know what kind of course. I said, so I started explaining some things. They said, we're not going to write like that. We write like that, no teacher would buy it. My job is to sell books. That's what the person in charge said. My job is to sell books. I can't worry about things like this. So that's the reality. So even with the Common Core behind you, you still have to be a little bit brave. And of course, more importantly, you have to be really certain, very confident about yourself, your knowledge, to say that, to be able to argue that, well, no, this improves learning. This is better for the kids. Not for you, but it's better for the kids. So all that, I hope I pointed out all the mistakes. There's no joy in pointing out mistakes. I hope you don't think I was doing it just for fun. What I was trying to tell you was every single one of those things. When you teach it like that, do you think it's capable to be learning? Any of them? You don't have learning. But you know this is exactly what the crisis is at this point. The mathematics education crisis is that students don't learn. I'm trying to tell you why students don't learn. Because garbage in, garbage out. That's why they don't learn. I'm not saying that you stop pouring garbage in, then one of the things must come out. I'm just saying, try that first. If after you teach very well, students still don't learn, well, that's the next step, isn't it? Then we say, well, socioeconomic status, or maybe they don't like your looks or whatever, right? But until that point comes, we have no reference point to see why things are as bad as they are. We're going through a major mathematics education crisis. And if you're curious about what this crisis is, how many of you have heard of Rising Above the Gathering Storm? RAGS, R-A-G-S. Of course. You still know it, of course. Google. You get it for free, the whole book. You can download the whole book for free. And read what they say. The nation is in deep crisis. The projection is that by 2050, we'll be not first rate. I forgot what it is. That we'll start being leader, or we will not even be first rate in science and mathematics. That's what we are talking about. The crisis is with us, and all you and I and a few of us can do here is let's get ourselves better. Let's see what happens. Because obviously, if you can't even improve a small group of people, then you forget about talking about bringing a whole nation, elevate the whole nation, right? That's it. So let's see, make sure it works. So I wanted to. So let me make it. So this is more or less what we talked about. Now you have a little bit more support, meaning that yes, they will still try to clamp down on you, but you have Common Core on your side. So that's what I just said, that I want to get across the idea that we just not talk about learning something, period. It's not that, it is that to how you can teach better. Because when mathematics is done right, trust me, it's much easier to learn. Right? So I just hope that we can start with ourselves. Let's do a better job. And after that, 3 years from now, if things, you try your best and still things don't improve, maybe we should come back with a conference, right? But I doubt it. Every single instance in the past of people who went to the institute, those who actually made an effort to improve their teaching in accordance with the new mathematics they've learned, they all talk about how much better their students feel, how much better their test scores are, and in some cases, quite dramatic. But that's not the reason. The reason is that somehow you should feel bad if you teach things that are wrong, right? It's the basic obligation of a teacher. Do no harm. So we want to let this be a starting point, at this institute, and then we go forward. Right? Okay.